The Champions League final, Manchester City versus Inter Milan. We're going to go through all the tactics. Look at how the game is going to be won and lost. We're going to be talking about the key points. Does Romelu Lukaku start? Should Guardiola start Riyad Mahrez? And of course, will he do something crazy like playing İlkay Gündoğan as a defensive midfielder, such as he did against Chelsea in the last Champions League final? But anyway, guys, let's start diving into the formations, the tactics, the analysis, and all that good stuff. So first up, from a real basic formation perspective, of course, it's going to be very, very fluid in the game, as both Simeone and Inzaghi's side and, of course, Pep Guardiola's side really rotate in terms of the positions. Manchester City have basically been playing this kind of hybrid 4-3-3, 3-2-5 structure, with John Stones defending in the centre-back position, but then moving into midfield to join Rodri at the base. This creates a really good passing network for Manchester City out of the back. They've got a lot of bodies, a lot of options to play through, to play into. Players will drop off the line and they'll really get control of matches. Inter Milan, for me, could be one of the most perfect teams to play against this shape and structure. Inter very much defend in a kind of 3-5-2 formation. They're super aggressive with their wing-backs at times, especially when the ball is on the sort of near side for the wing-back. They'll play high, the other one will drop on the other side. So let's say the ball's coming from the right-back position. DiMarco could be super aggressive, pressurising the football, and Dumfries will drop in to balance the side out. I believe this is where Inter could really catch out Manchester City. Their pressing structure is really, really good. Both of the forwards will move over and be aggressive, and in a sense, they'll have a man-to-man scheme in the defensive midfield line, with Barella and both Mkhitaryan looking to squeeze and get close to John Stones and, of course, Rodri. I really believe Rodri is going to be key for Manchester City. He didn't play the last final, and I think that was a big, big mistake from Guardiola. I think one of the big things that Rodri gives Manchester City not only is that strength in defensive midfield, but real composure, ability to hit those switches, which I think the way that they can get at Inter Milan is working the ball to one flank positionally and then getting it over to the flank and hitting it there. Rodri is the guy to do this. He is the linchpin in defensive midfield. Not only that, he's got a knack for scoring goals from outside the box. That's something that with City's attacking lineup and how it could move into the final third with the kind of front five players getting basically taken up by Inter Milan's back five. So in the final third, players like Rodri could become kind of these free men at times outside the box, arriving late and looking to get shots away, which could be a really good weapon for Pep Guardiola's side. Quite reminiscent of the 2011 final against Manchester United, where United were defensively brilliant for a lot of that game. But in the second half, Guardiola looked to instruct his players to take shots from outside the box. Remember the Lionel Messi goal? Bursting through the first Manchester United midfield line and then shooting from a deep area. And of course, the David Villa goal as well. That's something that Inter Milan needs to be wary for, because they will drop back into a kind of counter-attacking structure. That press has got to be aggressive in their defensive third, which it is. Of course, Antonio Conte was manager of Inter Milan recently, so there's still a little bit of an air of Antonio Conte in this Inter team. Inter, at the start of the season, tried to play like super high-pressing football, got caught out a few times, but at the back end of the season, they've gone to a little bit more reactive style, a la Antonio Conte, sitting a bit deeper and then breaking, which is going to be a massive, massive part of their game. I think for that high press for Inter Milan, I think it will be good. It will cause Manchester City danger. The rocking of those central midfielders to be super aggressive, to squeeze Man City high. Again, the fluidity with the press is quite good. At times we'll see the defensive midfielder step high and get on the ball, and then the other midfielder will cover the football. It's a super aggressive structure. Expect the centre-halves to step out of the defence, especially those outside centre-backs, Bastoni and Matteo Darmian. Yes, ex-Manchester United. Darmian has been really good back end of the season as an outside centre-half. Expect them to be super aggressive in those moments, but also with Haaland, when he's dropping off, he will be followed in that midfield position. But let's take a look at a goal that I think really showcases what Inter Milan could do to Man City in the transition after pressing high. So this is the second goal in the 2-0 win against Milan. Why I bring this one up is because it could be very, very similar in terms of what Inter Milan could do against Manchester City. So the pressure, as we mentioned, super aggressive. The wing-backs play super, super high. But what I like about the structure of what Inter Milan do is they don't allow you to play out. They stop you. To break up City's rhythm, you really have to be aggressive with your two strikers, with your wing-backs, with your central midfielders high up the pitch to stop them playing out. One of the big things that I think will help Inter Milan in doing this is that they know when they've put that pressure on the ball, when they've forced that long pass, that they're very, very good at winning the second ball. And that's something that City will look to do at times, play over the top of the Inter Milan press into Haaland, and then look to win the second ball. The thing with Inter Milan is they've got some of the best second ball players in Europe right now. Nico Barella has got an incredible engine. Henrik Mkhitaryan's won more tackles and interceptions than any other player. And I think this situation, Inter can win this initial duel, win the second ball, and then break at City. This is very, very similar where we've got 4 Inter Milan defenders basically got their back 4. What we'd expect with City is a 3-2 structure. So it could be a counter-attack, a 5-on-5 counter. One of the big things that Inter do, they get bodies into the box. They cross the ball from these wide areas. And I really think this is an aspect of Inter Milan's game that really suits playing Manchester City. Stopping them play out the back, forcing them into long passes, and then breaking from midfield. And that's something that could catch City out. You know, you're talking the defensive midfielder, Rodri, probably dropping a little deeper with John Stones. But players running off the midfield line, running off Ilkay Gundogan, running off Kevin De Bruyne. Something that Mkhitaryan did really, really well in this goal. Good ball from DiMarco. Fantastic first touch, a little bit of a carry, then a great goal to give into that second really important goal. But I do believe that's something that Inter could do against Man City. So looking at that from a tactical perspective, it's going to be very important that Inter Milan funnel Manchester City down one side. Again, City naturally have a 3-on-2 on the 2 forwards from Inter Milan, plus obviously Ederson's goalkeeping quality on the ball is pretty incredible. But what that could mean for Inter is they've got to squeeze the play, but be sort of a bit cautious in terms of where they're pressing. So in terms of forcing City down one side, being super aggressive with potentially a wing back in there to match it, to force City into those long passes. Again, then dominate that first ball, move back for the second ball, and then break through on the City backline. And that could be a really good avenue of success for Inter Milan in this game. And we're talking about the outside centre-backs pressing, the counter-attacking potential of Inter. City are obviously one of the best possession teams in the world. They could have an answer to play through. I think one of the important things for City is going to be the use of potentially Diaz carrying the ball forward, stepping up into midfield, driving through, because that means, one of the midfielders has to go out and react to that. I think that could be a really good avenue for Manchester City. Diaz carrying through the middle and looking to get City up the pitch to beat that initial Inter Milan press. So let's move on to kind of the other game, the other side of the game. That is obviously Inter building up, Inter's possession tactics. City have got one of the best 4-4-2 presses in the world of football. They force you inside, they force you into uncomfortable positions, and they put bodies forward. One of the things I'd say about this is Inter are a little bit interesting in terms of how they play out. And I think one of the things that we see with Inter Milan is wing-backs high. We see outside centre-backs super duper wide, and then we see midfielders dropping in. Regista, Calhanoglu or Brozovic. I probably think Calhanoglu's going to play. I thought he was fantastic against Milan. And then Barella dropping in as well. What they're trying to do is kind of, force you to really squeeze high when playing out from the back. Force you into a moment where you've got to put bodies forward, which creates space for the switches from the goalkeeper, but also that ability to play through the lines. I think one of the interesting aspects is going to be kind of the positioning of the Regista, the positioning of Calhanoglu in these moments, because if Inter want to jump and want to squeeze, you're going to have Ilkay Gundogan in this kind of diamond City press shape that we see at times when they're squeezing high up the pitch. But there's technically could be a bit of an overload somewhere, either Nico Barella dropping in, or Mkhitaryan dropping in, or Mkhitaryan staying high as he does at times, and then looking for those kind of central passes. The big thing, if Inter can get through this 4-4-2 diamond shape that City used to press in, or their 4-4-2 that we had previously a little bit of a look at there, the potential on the counter-attack is massive. We don't talk counter-attack in a sense of winning the ball back, but we talk about these nouveau counter-attacking situations where you've played through pressure and now you have a counter-attack. You have a 5-on-4 on the opposition's backline. So let's take a look at an example of this and why I think it's going to be so important for Inter to stick to their guns playing through opposition's pressure. So here we've got an example against Roma. This is something that we looked at in our Inter Milan tactics video, just focusing on Inter Milan. Now we're going to apply it to Manchester City. As we can see, the outside centre-backs are super wide. Darmian and Bastoni is even out of shot. What we have in this moment is these midfielders dropping back. We've got Nico Barella dropping into arguably a centre-back position, and Brozovic sitting at defensive midfield. This should be Calhanoglu in the final, but it could be Brozovic. Not sure exactly what Inzaghi will go with, but I'd probably go Calhanoglu over Brozovic just because of that that ball playing from that position. Both fantastic ball players, but I think Haken's got a little bit more vision and direct passing in his locker versus Brozovic's kind of Croatian playmaking that we've seen time and time again. But yeah, so we're looking at City. This is kind of a little bit of a diamond structure, 2 forwards and the defensive midfielder that's got to commit. I think one of the issues that Roma had when pressing was kind of the spatial awareness that you know that there's going to be a Mkhitaryan high up the pitch. You've got 2 wing-backs super duper high. Does the attacking midfielder in this pressing structure be aggressive? They didn't in this moment. Brozovic got himself turned, and now we're in this position that Inter could be in, bypassing that initial City press and then getting to the middle of the pitch to find a through ball. And that's something where the wing-backs really come in. Inter throw the wing-backs forward, both wing-backs super high. At times, it looks like Inter play a 3-3-4 with both wing-backs as basically wingers. They also throw bodies into the box. 2 strikers and a wing-back, 2 strikers and a centre-mid, 2 strikers, centre-mid and a wing-back. And that's a real danger for Manchester City. If Inter can get into these moments, break through, and then work the ball across and score on the other side. It is a weakness for City, attacking them in these wide areas, breaking bodies into the box, and then looking for that back post for the wing-back on the other side to score. City have got to be aware of that. I think Guardiola might tweak something, though. In terms of the tweak we might see for Guardiola is the last time that he was successful against a sort of 3-5-2 structure was against Chelsea. And what he actually did was he pressed in a narrow 4-2-3-1, where you had your centre forward, you've got your number 10, and you've got your 2 central midfielders, kind of quite narrow and aggressive. I think we could see this. What this means is that you've got the ability to force your opponents down one side and then be super aggressive. So what we saw in that Chelsea game was basically you kind of your man for man, and your whole team is kind of moving over to the ball zone, and you're trying to squeeze, you're trying to get on the ball. So, instead of you being able to play through, got man coverage on the outside centre-backs, you've got man coverage on the 2 defensive midfielders. You basically got a really good pressing structure. I think City will press in this kind of like narrow 4-2-3-1, and they'll be working it side to side. I could think that might be a tactical tweak, going away from the diamond that they used against Real Madrid in the semi-finals, their pressing structure and squeezing. I've got a feeling City are actually going to catch Inter out at least once, create some good goal scoring opportunities, and it could actually be an advantage for Manchester City. But in terms of the selection, it's going to be an interesting one to see who plays on the right hand side for Manchester City. Bernardo Silva has very much dominated the knockout stages. His performance against Real Madrid at home was brilliant. He scored twice, won the game for City. They killed it so early, Real couldn't get anywhere near them. In terms of what I liked about his performance was the work rate was sensational. He's a real hard worker. We've got to remember that he actually came through in European football playing as a right winger for a brilliant Monaco team, including the likes of Kylian Mbappe and Falcao and a whole load of other good players. But his work rate, I think, is going to be utilised by Pep Guardiola. I think he will start over the more creative-minded Riyad Mahrez. And I think that's a really good selection. This is City's kind of like big game team now, where they've got more ball players in there. They've got players that are super comfortable in possession, super comfortable on the ball. I think this is how Guardiola will set up. So it's not going to be the direct threat that Mahrez provides, but it will be, Bernardo Silva getting on the ball, creating, linking with teammates, and being a real goal scorer in this tournament. Looking at Inter Milan and how they're going to set up, I think the one question for them is, does Lukaku start? I'd argue to say no. I think Edin Dzeko and Martinez will start together. They were brilliant against AC Milan. The one thing that I thought they did really, really well was get balls into the feet. One of the big things I felt Milan struggled with, they were pressing in a very man-to-man structure in central midfield. But what that meant is both strikers could drop off the line and receive to feet. Looking how deep that Edin Dzeko heat map is on halfway shows where he's receiving the ball. And that'll allow Inter to break. It'll allow them to kind of counter through. So I'd go with Edin Dzeko and Martinez, who is absolutely flying at the moment in terms of goals and assists back end of the season. And it has actually coincided with Lukaku being back in the team. But I think Lukaku as an impact sub, if Inter need to score or if Inter needs some fresh bodies on the counter-attack, is a better option than starting him. I think Edin Dzeko is a good ball-playing option to start things off. A physical target, ex-City, going to want to score against them to prove a point. and then bring Lukaku off the bench to be an impact sub with Martinez. We know how good those two are at combining with each other. So I think that's how Inter should start the game. I think that's how Inter will grow. You could also look at the heat map here to see how high DiMarco is. DiMarco will make those runs on the back line for Manchester City, which I think will be a threat against Kyle Walker. Obviously, Kyle Walker's great recovery pace, but at times he does get caught ball watching. If there is a lapse in concentration, little one touch, straight into the box, finishing it off with a, Lukaku or Inzaghi at the back post could be a very, very good option. But I do think this game is going to be absolutely fantastic. City do have to cope with the attacking side and the attacking nature of Inter Milan, as we mentioned previously. Having the two forwards that are looking to receive passes into feet. It's going to be very, very important. The use of the wide centre-backs as well and the interchange on the left-hand side is going to be big. Henrik Mkhitaryan likes to move out there, likes to create chances from those positions. We know that they attack the box really well from the midfield areas. So City will press, I think, in this narrow 4-2-3-1. They'll then drop into their 4-4-2 shape. What they need to deal with in terms of the players are very, very dangerous. It is kind of the outside centre-back on this left-hand side, Bastoni. Very, very good at carrying through, very good at carrying the ball, which could draw players out for Manchester City, and then you play through, then you break the lines. Bastoni's also got a great delivery from deep, which I think when you're looking at someone like a Dzeko on the back post against a Diaz or a Stones, I quite like that battle for Inter Milan as well. I think, Bastoni's going to be someone that City really need to deal with, because if he can carry through and then put those balls into the box, we know that Barella will attack it at the back post. Really fantastic central midfielder that's got a lot of quality and will add that. I think the other thing that Inter have got in abundance is set-piece specialists. DiMarco, Carl Oglu. These are guys that put great balls into the box with three centre-backs who have always got a bigger chance of scoring. And I do think Andre Onana is going to play a massive part in this game. He's got the best post-shot expected goals numbers in the Champions League this season. He's saved Inter a whopping 7.5 goals in the Champions League this season. He's been probably back to his best, you'd say, ignoring his recent game in Serie A where he made a clanger. But performances against Porto, so good. 6 saves in that match. Really good against AC Milan. Not making many saves, but making big saves at the right moment. 44 saves in the Champions League, more than any other side. I think he is going to be a little bit of an ace for Inter Milan in this match. But let's move on to predictions for the game. I can't see anything but City winning it. They are massive favourites. They've got the quality. This is the best City team we've ever seen. Their possession game is good, but Inter Milan could cause some problems. Inzaghi says he's got a plan. Inzaghi is one of my favourite tacticians in the world of football. The creativity comes from their defenders. DiMarco, 5 assists in the Champions League, the most of any defender, the most any Inter players managed since Samuel Eto'o in the 2010-11 season. We mentioned the impact of Bastoni carrying the ball up, and the 2 strikers. And I do think that if this game goes to a point where Inter grab the first goal, Lukaku off the bench is going to be humongous. He is in the form of his life at Inter for this season. We're looking at 4 goals and 2 assists in his last 6 games. The guy is absolutely flying, confident, strong. His performances against Sassuolo, both of those goals were just classic, brilliant Lukaku. It'd be a great story for him to see it, but unfortunately, I can't see anything other than Manchester City winning this game. I will be supporting Inter Milan, don't you worry. Our last chance in stopping Manchester City's treble is the Italians. We do know Guardiola likes to throw a curveball in finals. He really shouldn't. He should stick to what has worked so well for him this season. But we also know that there is that ability for Inter to counter, to break, to be a very, very difficult team to play against. The forward options are good. The midfield options are good. This is a great team. This is a great Inter team. One of my favourite teams that I've seen in recent years. Inzaghi at Lazio was brilliant. Inzaghi at Inter is very, very enjoyable, and they're hitting real form in the last part of the season. Beat Fiorentina in the cup final recently, 2-1 after going a goal down. Lautaro to bring it back. It's going to be a great game, guys. Get your score predictions in the comments below. I've been Statman Dave. I hope this has been a good little tactical analysis for you. Subscribe if you're new. And guys, you should enjoy it. Loads of content coming, loads of transfer videos coming. GG's in the chat.